Hi, it's Wednesday, March the 30th, and I continue to read and wonder my way through the book of Genesis. Actually, this is my last day of reading and wondering my way through the book of Genesis because we're in Genesis chapter 50, and we're going to read verses 22 to 26, and that's it. Which means tomorrow, if you show up, I know I'll be here. Tomorrow I'm going to start in on the book of Exodus. So we'll move from Genesis into Exodus, continuing the story of the Israelites, of the house of Israel, and we'll see where that goes. But that's tomorrow. Today we're still going to wrap up Genesis. So Genesis chapter 50 is pretty much sort of the wrap-up chapter. It's the end chapter. Jacob has been buried, and Joseph's brothers have been assured of Joseph's forgiveness and his fidelity. They were a little worried that with Dad gone, maybe Joseph would bear a grudge and want payback, vengeance for what they had done to him. But there were tears and conversations, and Joseph assures them that they are forgiven and that he will continue to care for them. And in fact, that's what happens. So with that assurance, well, then that's how we get to the last verses here. So it's Genesis 50, chapter 22 to 26. So Joseph remained in Egypt, he and his father's household, and Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation. The children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were also born on Joseph's knees. Then Joseph said to his brothers, I am about to die. But God will surely come to you and bring you up out of this land to the land that he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. So Joseph made the Israelites swear, saying, When God comes to you, you shall carry up my bones from here. And Joseph died, being 110 years old. He was embalmed and placed in a coffin in Egypt. So there you go. And that's how the book of Genesis ends. And as we will discover, yes, Joseph died. He was embalmed and placed in a coffin in Egypt. That coffin was not buried. That coffin was not entombed. That coffin was basically out. So that, well, centuries later, when they do leave Egypt, it can be taken away. So I guess we're invited right away to think a little bit about patience. When God comes to you, shall carry up my bones from here, Joseph said. I don't know that Joseph thought it was going to take 400 years. Some things take time. And I don't know about you, but I do live in a world of instant gratification. I find a microwave takes too long to heat a meal in 3 minutes. That's just, come on, I don't have that time. So I like things done right away. Joseph dies knowing that God's will be done, right? God has made a covenant, and Joseph believes in that covenant. So he knows they're not going to stay in Egypt. So he dies at peace, knowing that God will take care of things, even if it takes 400 years. I like to think of myself as somebody who trusts in God, and I do. And I am a patient man, but there are times when I will wonder why God isn't hurrying up. Why is this taking so long, God? Why aren't you doing it my way, God? I've already figured this out. All you have to do is check with me, God. I'll tell you how to get this accomplished. And I recognize Joseph dies blessed and at peace. And maybe part of that peace is that he trusts in God without timelines. He trusts in God even knowing that he will not see the outcome. He trusts that the Israelites will carry his body out. He trusts that he'll be part of the fulfillment of God's covenant, which is that they won't remain in Egypt but have their own land. He trusts in that and dies trusting. I'm not on my deathbed, nor have I ever felt that I was, so I'm not quite sure how I will be when my time comes. Will I be trusting, or will I be lamenting all the things that I had hoped would be accomplished in my lifetime? Joseph has taken those things and put them with God. So I wonder if we have that capacity, you and me, us, to trust in God to the point where we can let things go and be at peace, at life or in death. Now, and I appreciate that can be a recipe for, I'm not going to do anything, I'm just going to trust God to take care of it. So why would I bother caring about the poor? God will take care of that. Why do I have to worry about injustice? God's on that. Racism is going to work itself out. God's on top of that. So I'm not looking to abdicate responsibility. I'm looking for a healthy balance where I am engaged in these things that God calls me to, which is about injustice, and it is about poverty, and it is about racism, and it's about all sorts of inhumanity that can be and should be addressed by us humans, but also recognizing that we don't engage in these things alone, and so at the end of the day, going to bed and saying, I'm leaving that one for God for now. At the end of my life, going, well, we haven't been called out of Egypt yet, but I know what's going to come. So please, brothers, when it's my time, when it is time to be called out, please take my body too. I don't want to stay here. That's trust. That's trust. It also, for me, shows his continued commitment to his relationship with God. Joseph's commitment to his relationship with God. It would be easy, I would think, at that time, in that place, for Joseph to be buried in some kind of magnificent tomb. I don't know if we're talking about a pyramid, but some kind of magnificent tomb. He is second to Pharaoh. He has saved the world for the Egyptians and certainly for the house of Israel. He could have had a very big Egyptian burial, I would think. You think about the ceremony that went on for his dad, who was a Hebrew and not a hero to Egypt in any way. So surely he could have had a big Egyptian burial, and I think that he is devoted to Egypt and that he has served Egypt well. And I don't think that he regrets being in Egypt. He just knows that that's not where he's going to stay. So he holds on to that and therefore doesn't become entirely Egyptian. He is embalmed. Again, I think that's an Egyptian thing, but that's probably a good idea. And then placed in a coffin to stay there until it's time to fulfill what God had promised. Which is a land for them. It is not in Egypt. So even in the midst of participating in Egyptian life in significant ways, he remains committed to his faith. There may be something in that worth wondering about a little bit too. For you and me, I don't know. Certainly for me, I live in a capitalist society. I negotiated my salary that I am paid. I look to leverage this and that. It's easy to get so wrapped up in the world that I forget my faith. And there are times that the world and my faith are going in different directions, and I have to choose. So I take some inspiration from Joseph, who lives in the Egyptian world, but does not become Egyptian. Is respected in the Egyptian world, knows how it functions, but does not give up his core faith in God, his understanding of the covenant, which is that they will not stay there. So there's no point in planting me here. I am to be moved. I wonder how we do on that, living in the world as it is, living in Egypt, and yet remaining faithful to God. And you can define Egypt any way you want to. It might be where you work, it might be where you live, it might be how you live, it might be a variety of things. For me, it is, yes, I live in and a democratic capitalist society, much of which I celebrate, and some of which I lament. And it's very easy to get swallowed up by all of it and just lose track of my faith. Goodness knows I have seen that happen to people. I don't mean to judge that, but I certainly have seen people get all wrapped up in the busyness of their lives and the way things are in the world, and lose that tether, lose that thing that connects them spiritually to, I would say, God, but it doesn't have to be my expression of God, but they lose that connection to the holy other. Joseph never does that. Joseph never does that. So maybe that's part of why Joseph is blessed, right? And here we are at the very end of his life, and we're acknowledging. So Joseph remained in Egypt. It says Joseph lived 110 years, and we go, well, that's a lot of years. Yeah, I guess it is. Except that I am aware that Joseph is the second youngest of his brothers, and he doesn't live as long as they do. I mean, he's about to die, so he says to his brothers, I'm about to die, but God will surely come to you. So his brothers are alive, and he is on his deathbed. So I don't know that 110 years is a whole lot in Jacob's family. I mean, we've read, we're hearing 140 years, those kind of numbers. So is Joseph actually a little bit early? So I'm not sure that the length of his life is the part that we call the blessing. I think that his continued faith in God, his ability to hold on to that while in the midst of Egypt, I think that is part of the blessing. And if I am to take the author of Genesis at their word, I think the real blessing for Joseph is that he knew his great-grandchildren. Joseph lived 110 years. Joseph saw Ephraim's children of the third generation, and then the children of Machir, son of Manasseh, were also born on Joseph's knees. He knew his great-grandchildren. I mean, here we are in the last chapter of Genesis. It's been a heck of a story, all the way from the creation, literally the creation of all things, to this moment. And, I mean, if you really wanted to go over the top and wanted to celebrate Joseph's life, oh my goodness. He comes in this long line of creation. He is the descendant of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. He saved the world. He saved the Egyptian world. He saved the Hebrews. I mean, he saved the Israelites, the house of Jacob. Without him, they are all starving to death in Canaan. And then we're not telling this story. What he has done is incredible. He is second only to Pharaoh in Egypt. His power, his wealth. Oh my goodness. He had it all. What we celebrate here is that he had grandchildren. I like that. Not just grandchildren, great-grandchildren. When all is said and done, as far as the author of Genesis is concerned, the great blessing for Joseph, the sign that this was all worthwhile, is about his great-grandchildren. So that could be taken to mean, well, so that's what it's all about, really. It's about family. Yeah, I can see that. Now, he mentions Ephraim's children to the third generation and also Manasseh's children. Joseph has other children. So I don't know whether he got along with all of his kids, with his whole family, or just some of them, just a few of them. I'm not exactly sure. But I think the blessing is that he has family. Whether it's everybody who's entitled to be called family or just a select few, he has family. He has relationships. And I think there's something special, too, about them being cross-generation. He doesn't just have brothers. No, he has sons and grandsons and great-grandsons. And therein is his blessing. That's the 20 years in prison. He has great-grandchildren. That's the payoff. So I think that's interesting. and worth wondering about. I mean, I have not been, as I've mentioned probably before, I have not been on my deathbed or had that experience. But I wonder what I will count as blessing at the end of my life, as I feel the clock ticking down. Will I look at the things that I have accomplished, or will I look at the relationships that I have nurtured, the relationships that have gifted me? Um, I I'd like to think that I will focus on the relationships. Because relationships are things that last, and relationships are things that can be worked at. They go up and down, but they can be worked at. Wealth and power, you have them, then and they're gone. And sometimes they're just gone arbitrarily, and you can't get them back. Sometimes relationships are an ongoing thing. We experience love, and we experience acceptance in relationships, and that's the blessing. We sometimes think we can experience love and acceptance in wealth and power. We do everything we can to make it seem that way, and yet that's not how it works. Which I guess brings me to the other little thing. I'm about to die, he says, but God will surely come to you and bring you up out of this land, to the land that he swore to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. So he notes the covenant. When God comes here, he says, you shall carry up my bones from here. So his request is, when it's time for the Israelites to go, please don't leave my bones behind. Take them here. Take them out of Egypt. Why didn't he ask to have his bones taken out of Egypt right now and taken to be buried beside Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? He knew the way. His brothers knew the way. Why isn't he getting buried there? Why doesn't he want to be buried there? I wonder about that. I mean, this is Joseph. Joseph is the one who has remained faithful, right? I mean, you think about it. So God makes a covenant with Abraham, and that covenant moves and is manifest then in Isaac, and that covenant is then inherited, as it were, into Jacob, and for Jacob into Jacob's 12 sons, the tribes of Israel, and that's how this covenant is made manifest. Got it. So Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob belong together. I see that. But doesn't Joseph belong there too? When you think about it. Again, Joseph saved the world. They'd all be dead without Joseph. And Joseph is the one who has maintained his faith. Through all the terrible things that have happened to him, he has trusted in God. He has felt God's presence, and people around him have recognized his faith. He has not doubted God. He has believed in the plan that God has for him. He's saying so when he forgives his brothers. I know what you did was a terrible thing, but it was all part of God's plan. He says to them. His brothers, when Dad's gone, they go, Joseph's going to get us now, because they don't trust in God's plan. They don't trust in God the same way that Joseph does. So Joseph is an exemplar of the faith. Joseph has remained faithful even when surrounded by the wealth and the power that is his in Egypt. He remains faithful. He remains faithful to his brothers. He remains respectful to his father. He's an all-round great guy. And everyone would be dead if not for him. So why doesn't he get to be buried with the big guys? Because Joseph doesn't ask for it. Because Joseph doesn't need recognition. Maybe that's also the blessing. Maybe that's also why he dies at peace, because he's not worried about being remembered. Doesn't want his body left behind. He wants to be part of the covenant, and that he's not going to be left behind in Egypt. But he doesn't need a pyramid. He doesn't need a great tomb. He doesn't need anything. He just needs to be carried along with the people as God wills it. He's happy to subordinate himself to a greater cause. I don't know if you've ever been involved in fundraising, but I'm on a theater board, and I go to theater. When I go to the theater, I'll get a program, and I'll open the program, and there's usually about 2 pages of donors' names. From one-time donors to President's Circle, who offer a whole lot of money on a regular basis. And they're all acknowledged. The more you give, the bigger print, so we get to see your name. And we do that because people like to be acknowledged for their gifts. Joseph, he's the anonymous donor. He's not asking to be acknowledged for his gifts. That's an interesting thing to me. I wonder, how happy am I to be part of something bigger than me? How happy am I to be proud to be part of something wonderful without being acknowledged? Without people saying, oh, that's the Norm thing. Oh, man, Norm did that. I'd like to think I'm good at it. But maybe I've never been involved in that many things for which I could receive credit. I'd like to think I'm good at it, but I mean, it's funny. A church that I served, over 20 years ago. Wonderful community, wonderful people. I love that church, and they have this fantastic community garden that they built in the remains of an old drive shed. When I was there at the church, there it was just these concrete walls out back behind the church. That it was just overgrown with weeds, and what are we going to do with it? And I remember very clearly coming up with the idea that we could build this into a garden, and wouldn't that be amazing? And indeed, that's what happened. All sorts of people got together, volunteers, and made a phenomenal garden. I didn't design the garden. I didn't do any more work on the garden than anybody else did. In fact, I did probably a lot less than most people did. But there's a part of me that always goes like, that was my idea, And if I happen to be back in that little town and I'm visiting the garden, which I do because it's a gorgeous garden, I just love to sit in it. If I'm sitting with somebody, I am tempted to go like, this was my idea. So as much as I think that I am like Joseph, I realized, you know what? Not always, Norm. There are moments. And so I wonder whether that's the challenge for me if I want to feel as blessed as Joseph. If I want to be able to die not afraid, not angry, not disappointed. It's that I trust in God, and I let go of that part of my ego that needs to be credited for doing great things. Because goodness knows I don't want to be credited when I do crappy things. I'd like you to ignore the fact that I made a mistake and did a terrible thing. But I do like to hold on to the celebrations. I suppose if my faith is in God and my primary relationship is with God, then I am not worried so much about what others are saying about me. If I really trust in the love of God, I don't know that I need to be celebrated by anybody. And that's probably the way that one comes to one's deathbed without fear. Yeah. Wow. I didn't think I'd talk this much. But this ending has actually made me think about a bunch of things. I hope it's given you something to wonder about too, because I'm going to stop right now. Anyway, let me offer this prayer. Let us pray. Loving God, we come to the end of a book, the end of a saga. We come to the end of some time of wondering. And so, God, we thank you for the love, the imagination, the fearlessness, the experiences, the perspectives that have brought us to this moment. God, may we hear your word. May we see your Spirit move as we wonder, as we engage in Scripture, and as we live our lives. God, thank you for the journey thus far. We can't wait to see what happens next. We pray in Jesus' name through the Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, friends, thank you so much for being on the journey thus far with me, and I hope that you show up tomorrow and we start another journey. Until we do get to see each other, God bless you. Please know that that means that God sees you and that God loves you and that God's love actively moves through you. You matter a great deal. God bless.